imposter syndrome, that feeling where you get that voice inside your head that says, who are you to be doing this, teaching this, saying this? I'm going to be going down through this video and sharing the quickest ways to overcome imposter syndrome, to actually feel like you can own what you do and be seen in it, share your gifts, and step into that next iteration of yourself that you're feeling is being called for, so you can share your gifts, you can live the life you want. Because when we in that imposter syndrome, it keeps us small and it keeps us hidden. I'm Dean Bentley, and I help people build their visions, unlock who they truly are, and step into their greatest potential. And in this episode, I'm going to be going into what imposter syndrome is, because I see it in so many people I work with, this idea that they can't do exactly what they want, that they're not good enough. And I'm going to be sharing about my own journey through that as well, because I've experienced it many times where it's that voice inside that says, who are you to be doing that? So we're going to be looking at that and stepping outside that box to see what it takes to go beyond the imposter, to step into your potential so that you can live that life that you've always dreamed of. So firstly, let's go into what the imposter syndrome is and what it is about. So when I'm talking about imposter syndrome, what I mean is that feeling, that voice that says, hey, you can't do this, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not whatever. And it's like, who are you to be doing what you're doing now? And this can come up in two different ways. Firstly, it can come up when you go to step into a new situation in life, where you go to step outside your current zone of comfort and into the next iteration of you. And this can be a fear response that is coming up, that's asking you, hey, are you willing to go beyond fear? Now, the second way that this may come up is it may come up in your current situation. And it may be like, who are you to be living the life you're doing? Everything seems really good. You don't deserve this. And this can stem from so many different areas, and can stem from unworthiness, beliefs around not being good enough, and all of this. And we may not touch on that one as much in this episode. This is more going to be involved around people stepping in to that next iteration. And I will be talking about that other one in a later video. Comment below if you want to see that. I'm happy to share later on about that and how to overcome that as well. So what we're looking at is how to take that step without feeling like a fraud, feeling insecure, and actually feeling confident to go beyond what you're currently doing. And for me, I've experienced this many times. And when I first became a coach, this was really apparent in how I felt about myself. I was 21 at the time, and I started coaching people. I started charging money for my coaching, and it was like, who am I to actually be doing this? I'd never done anything like that before. I never had known anyone who had done it before. And that scared me. I was like, is this possible? Is this okay? Can I charge for this? And even though the people I worked with got some incredible results, and there was still this feeling that I'm not sure if this is what I'm meant to be doing. I'm not sure if I can do this. I'm not sure if I'm good enough to do this. And so there was this constant battle inside myself of feeling like I currently wasn't good enough to do what I wanted to do, which at the time was coaching. And what this led to was feelings of insecurity, feelings of I need to prove myself, and eventually that iterated into pushing myself to a point of burnout where I was trying to prove that I had value, that I proved that I was good enough later on in my coaching life. And this eventually led to a point where my nervous system was shot, and it actually involved me stepping away from full-time coaching, getting some part-time work to let my nervous system come down and be like, oh, it's okay. I don't need to prove how good I am anymore. And when we're dealing with imposter syndrome, when I was dealing with it, a lot of it was stemming from the belief of I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy of being this person who is living the life of their dreams. and it felt like, oh, I'm I don't get that. And when I look back and reflect on this, what this was really saying was I didn't think I was worthy, which was saying I didn't love myself enough to allow myself this possibility of living the life I desired and trust in myself that it was okay to do what I was doing. And since then, I've gone through a lot of iterations. I'm currently back full-time coaching, and I'm here creating. And even in this situation here, where I'm speaking, where I'm sharing my wisdom, there is that feeling of, oh, here's some more imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, this new level, same devil. And what I've found for this is there's so many different ways we can work with it to overcome it, to go beyond what we know. But the quickest way is to actually own it. Because when I said that right then to you, what happened was every charge actually dissipated within my body. Because I'm not trying to be anyone I'm not right now. I'm just being like, hey, this is true for me. And I'm willing to meet myself in truth. And this is the big thing with imposter syndrome. What it often stems from is this feeling of, I need to be more than I am. I need to make sure people think I'm greater than what I am and go beyond where they're actually at. And this can stem from a belief of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, and that need to prove and validate who they are. And this will never actually do. And the way to go beyond imposter syndrome is actually take a step back and step into the truth of where you're at right now and be really honest with where you're at and be willing to share that. So for me right now, I'm going through what I call an identity shift, and I've shared this on the most recent podcast episode of the Wyrd Way, where I was talking about the next iteration of what I'm bringing through. I'm looking to go beyond and transcend the idea of just being a coach. That's been the main archetype I've been playing with, to step into this archetype of the creator, which has me here sharing these videos. And a big part of this is I want to grow my business and continue to grow that up into the 6 figures and go beyond what I'm currently doing. Now, there's no charge there for me when I say that. There's no fear of, oh, who am I to be teaching? Because I'm completely real with myself. I've relaxed into myself and I'm willing to share that. And when the imposter syndrome comes up, if we're willing to meet it in truth, I've been like, oh, I'm feeling insecure that I don't deserve this, or I'm not good enough for this. If this is your truth, it will actually dissipate the charge, because we're willing to meet that element of truth. And what a lot of people do is they feel that thing that says, oh, you're not good enough, and they fight it. And they're like, put the gloves up and they want to fight. And they want to push it away and be like, no, I'm not that. I won't look at that. I'm going to reject that, and push it away as much as possible. And what this does is creates an internal tension within themselves. So there's one side of them that says, I'm good enough, and another side that says, I'm not good enough. And these two are at battle. And they're going to continue to be at battle until there's a way for them to dissipate that charge. Because the more that you fight, the more energy actually goes into that. This is a basic hermetic principle. If we're trying to fight or we resist, this is where the law of surrender, acceptance, this is where it all plays out. And I'll do videos on that later. But this is where it all plays out. And until we're willing to actually do something different. So what I was talking about in my example is actually stepping into the middle and saying, this is where I'm at. And this is okay, because over here, one says I'm good enough, I need more, and I'm not okay with not being good enough. And the other one's like, you're not good enough and I got to fight you. And it doesn't work. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome, the quickest way is to actually sit down with yourself and admit your truth and be with that. And this comes to the law of non-resistance, of being with what is and allowing yourself to meet this part. because all it is it's a fragmentation of yourself that's occurred from some point in your life, which could be trauma, it could be conditions, beliefs, whatever it was that you went through. There was a moment in time which caused you to separate from this part of yourself that is now trying to keep you safe. Because this one over here that is saying that person isn't good enough, it is actually serving you. And I'm going to speak into this, is that version, that one over here, it learnt through the conditioning, through your life, that you had to be a certain way and you wanted to stay within your box. And by keeping in that box, you stayed safe. So there was walls around you that said, hey, I've got to be this version of yourself, whatever that may be. It may be you had to be the good guy, you had to be smart. They were mine. I was, I was dux of school, I was school captain, and I tried to fit into this really good boy thing where I had to be perfect. And so every time I'd share my flaws, or I'd share myself like this and express and maybe show that I'm not perfect, that little voice would be like, hey, don't do that. People might see you, they might judge you. And that stemmed from that part of me that wanted to keep me safe. So through meeting it with love and being like, oh, that's okay. You can tell me to not do this because you want to keep me safe. We dissolve that tension instead of fighting it, because we're fighting against ourselves, and bringing it in and being like, oh, okay, you get to come home. You get to come home. You get to come home. And if you're noticing that voice, ask, what is its desire for you? Because it does have a desire. It wants something. And it may be underneath the layers of, it wants to keep you small, it wants to keep you in your box. What that is really saying is it wants to keep you safe. And this means there's a wounded part that hasn't been brought home into yourself right yet. So this is why we're looking at dissolving the tension rather than creating more, because the more tension, the more we force ourselves away from the totality of ourselves, and it continues this iteration of tension, which increases and continues the imposter cycle. Because what truly that imposter syndrome cycle is wanting to occur is for you to return to wholeness. And it's actually the gateway into a deeper sense of self. So instead of creating separation, you want to create unity by bringing yourself back home and allowing yourself to integrate and come home to the fullness of yourself. So when you go to step into that new stage, instead of being like, I've got to make sure I'm not feeling like an imposter and I got to get rid of that voice, actually reach behind and bring it with you and say, hey, I see you, I've got you. Ask if it needs anything to feel safe. Ask if there's something it is desiring that is going to allow it to feel safe and secure in this next iteration. Because this is a part of you and it wants to come with. And so for me, that is what I'm doing in this new iteration. I'm stepping into this role of creator. I'm sharing myself in a more bigger way. I'm teaching, I'm, making videos. I'm doing all of these things here. And that allows more of me to come through. And so how I'm doing that to ensure my own safety is by being in truth, like I have been in this video. I've said what I'm doing, my feelings, any fears, any insecurities, and I've allowed you to see me in that. So I don't need to be like, I got to cover this feeling, I've got to be someone more than myself. No, I just need to be myself and allow that. So I just keep that here. And then I check in with myself. Do I need anything for this next iteration? And for me, what that's looked like is I actually have needed a lot more rest. I've needed to slow down in other areas of my life because I've been creating a lot. This has become my biggest project right now. Creation. On the other side of this whiteboard, my projects are there. And it's like, oh, all of my energy is going into creation. So I've actually put boundaries in place in certain relationships where I'm like, hey, I'm actually not available for that right now. Nothing to do with them, but everything to do with myself. because I know I need the energy to continue to create in the way that I want, and to actually own that identity, I need more space and time for me. And so this is an invitation to check in with what you need. And then the other part is to allow yourself to be in truth. If you're able to do both of these things, you'll actually learn how to come into yourself and hold the truth of who you are and meet yourself on a deeper level. So this is the quickest way to overcome imposter syndrome, where you're stepping into that next iteration and going beyond this. If you want another resource for this, check out my latest podcast episode on the Wyrd Way, Change Your Identity, Change Your Life. It goes deep into this and gives you a wider overview of my own current iterations and how I'm transitioning in this part of my life to go into the next stage. And then if you've got questions, comment below, send me a message on Instagram, find me at the Dean Bentley on every platform, and subscribe, and let me know where you're struggling with the imposter syndrome and what other videos you're wanting to see to help you deepen into yourself. So much love. Take care.